Okay, so we should be recording now. I'll have to wipe that off. Okay, the whole idea of this unit, as I said before, is around building up us. It's building up our resilience, it's building up our positivity and our ability to cope with things that go wrong in our lives. Being a student means, sadly, that things like depression is endemic. It's just part of being a student, and we need to learn that, okay, just because I've got an assignment due isn't the end of the world. I can work forward from this, I can flex around it. Keeping in contact with your lecturers is a key thing there, because if you keep in contact with your lecturers, we know, like, especially in something like positive psychology, positive learning, because it is something that touches the inside of you. If you're having problems dealing, contact me, email me. That's where Facebook is freaking awesome, because you can just send me a quick message and I can get back to you. So there's no need to overly stress about anything. If you think you're going to have an assessment that's going to be late, just put in for an extension. We're probably the most lenient of all the units as far as that's concerned, because we understand life does get in the way. Okay. It's a theory of positive psychology through the Choose Happiness model, which is Timothy Sharp's, which is great. It's about getting clarity. It's looking at our health, because obviously there's that big mind-body connection. So if we're feeling unwell, we're not going to be able to study as well. Life's going to look a bit more pear-shaped. Optimism, it's learned optimism rather than learned pessimism. Looking at our interaction with others, because that affects us, interaction with our families, our friends, our colleagues. Strengths, what are our own personal strengths? And we go into them a bit later on through the modules, where you'll identify your strengths. And you'll identify areas that you think, okay, maybe I need to work on a little bit more, because it's all a learning process. And the last bit is just enjoy the process. Enjoy learning about yourself, learning about where you're heading. What are you wanting to do when you finish the unit? That's an important part of it. How is this going to impact on your chosen career path? And as I said, when we did the orientation was on, pretty much anyone who's going to be facing other people in their workplace, this is a great unit to do. One of the things we look at is what's called the iceberg theory. Somebody might come to work and be really snappy and cranky, and we immediately personalise it, rather than going, I wonder what else is happening for them. They could be just having some stuff in their own life that's not working for them, but they're taking it out on everyone around, which is a sad thing that happens. It's online learning, so you have to be a little bit more time management-y to get through the work. Generally, this doesn't take the recommended 12 hours a week. You can usually get through it a bit quicker. We'll go through the assessment part of it. Communicating with other PLU students. We've got the online discussions, forums, chats. We've got Zoom. Got the Facebook page, which I find students seem to like, because they can message each other and build that connection. I don't know what campuses people are on, but you'll find there are other people. There's 31 students as of this morning. So we've got a good group that are going to be actually doing it, and they spread out pretty much everywhere. And all assessments obviously are loaded up through the Moodle site. Online material only. There's the snapshots. Most of the snapshots Trixie's done. I share this unit with her. Say share it. She's the one who built it up. I do 2 terms this year of doing it. She'll do over the summer term. So we can keep it fresh, because every term we come up with new ideas, and we try and refresh on a regular basis. The textbook you've already printed out. If you printed that out, that won't change. Next term there might be a new iteration, as I found some awesome stuff on resiliency. So we might make some changes around the resilience stuff next term. Snapshots Trixie's done, because she's far more photogenic than I am. Moodle. Unfortunately, the Moodle video tour we have online is actually relating to the old Moodle, because the new one only started on Monday. and we weren't able to do anything with the prior. It was all like, oh, new exciting surprise for everybody. Hence broken links and everything else that I've been scrambling to put in. There's the study guides that you printed out the textbook, or you can just get them off the site. I like to write. I like to write all over my textbooks and highlight and things like that. So we developed that for people who are more of that tactile. Forums, online community, Facebook, Zoom. I'm going to try and do weekly chats about what's on that week, and as we get towards assessments, focusing on what the assessment is. Personal notations, they're as much as anything for reflective purposes. It's really handy to look back on them. Okay, that's where I was at, that's how I'm feeling today. It's a well-known psych technique that we use, which is a diary of how we're feeling that day. On a rating scale of 1 to 10, how am I feeling? What's caused it? You know, what's made me happy? What's made me sad? And you can look back and go, I survived that. I can survive whatever's happening in my life today. My background is as a psychologist. I'm actually a forensic psychologist. I've got 2 psych degrees and I've got a master's of criminology. But I was a student counsellor here, and then I was lucky enough to start working as a lecturer and in this, which is why I'm so passionate about this positive psychology view. Personal notations, they're for you. You put as much personal stuff into the assessment part as you like. The only person who sees it's me. So you can be assured of confidentiality is utmost. And the unit profile is, as you'd have, if this isn't your first unit, you'd know your unit profile is basically your Bible of what happens in the unit. What's on each week, what the assessment is, when it's due. So that's one you really need to keep an eye on. And you have the study schedule, what's happening each week. Assessments. Assessment 1 is the quiz. You need to have read the material, go on, do the quiz. You get 1 shot at it, but you have heaps of time to do it. It's only 20 questions, and it marks itself straight away, so you know where you're at. There's Reflective Portfolio A, which is worth 20% of your marks. 3 is 40%, it's quite a bit bigger. And the assessment 4 is one, you've got a choice of 3 different assessments. So if you're creative, some just really interesting stuff in that one. We've got some awesome things out of it. Some of the stuff students do is just amazing. So I'll be going through them in more depth. All assessments must be submitted in order to pass the unit. So obviously, like all other units, it's 50% overall to pass, but you are expected to submit something for everything. So you can't just get to the 50% mark and go, yeah, I'm going to throw my hands up and do nothing. Assessment 1, it's the quiz, 10%. Demonstrate your understanding of all those key principles. It's open book, but you've only got the 1 attempt. This is where if you can possibly stretch a budget to having 2 screens on your computer, it's worth its weight in gold, because you can have the text and everything up on 1 screen and the quiz open on the other. So you need to complete the readings in Module 1 and viewing the snapshots and the YouTube links. Now we've got them all figured out and working. Some students have already completed it. Make sure you've got a steady internet connection. And you've got 2 hours to do it. So you've got a fair chunk of time to actually go through it. And its return date is immediate. So you'll immediately know how you're going. Assessment 2, it's reflective. It's only weeks 2 to 4. So it's only 3 weeks work into it. And it's applying the positive strategies and techniques into a real life context. We throw a lot of strategies at you. We throw a lot of theories, a lot of techniques. What we want to see is you actually being able to put them in real world context. So you've actually taken them, thought about them, and can apply them. And they're weekly tasks given in weeks 2 to 4, and it'll say this needs to go in your portfolio. So you access the tasks and the assessment overview. As I said, there's a template for you to fill in. which is fairly clear. It gives you word lengths, very much like prep skills, question, and then you've got area to answer. You submit it through Moodle in the normal way. Due date is the 6th of April. That's the due as in D-U-E, not do, D-O. So we do expect it on the 6th of April. And the return date is 2 weeks later. I try and mark them as they come in so you get quick feedback. So as soon as I can, I download, I mark and get them the batches back to you. I don't leave it till the last minute to release all the grades. So I think it's nice to know how you've gone right from the start. So you have Positive Life as your first one. So it's about setting goals, effectively planning, and setting those SMART goals that you'll be going through, which is week 2's work. Then we look at positive health. And as I said earlier, the mind-body connection is really well researched. And if you're feeling healthy in yourself and you're getting some sleep and you're getting some exercise, it actually helps get your brain functioning better. So we talk about positive health. My goal for this term is I'm going to give up smoking by the time this term's finished. So I'm setting myself a health goal right at the beginning. I did it in term 2 last year, was to lose weight. And I did. I lost quite a considerable amount of weight. So I set myself goals each term. You guys got to keep me accountable for the stop smoking bit. So June's I've got to be smoke free by then. But if we get enough sleep, we all know we study better, we feel better, but we need to learn about what's called sleep hygiene, is how to get sleep, it's a whole different ballgame. If you've got sick kids or you're sick and things like that, that throws all good plans straight out the window. And then we look at positive emotions. It's the broaden and build theory, the iceberg theory that I talked about earlier, where what's happening for somebody on the surface and what you see is not necessarily what's happening underneath. Some people have this bright, bubbly persona, but when you actually talk to them, it's a facade. They just have it up there because that's their survival technique. Underneath, things might be really pear-shaped. So be aware that it works both ways. They can be as cranky as hell, but they're not cranky at you. They might have got a flat tire on the way to work, running late. They might have got a sick kid or fought with the husband or whatever. And also energy zones, what energizes us and what pulls us back down into that low energy depression state. So those are the topics for the Reflective Portfolio A. Assessment 3 is the modules 5 to 8. Applying the positive strategies and techniques, the same as before. And the weekly tasks, again, are given in weeks 5 to 8. So this is pretty much the same. There's reflective, there's a template for you to fill in. So don't panic if when you put it through Turnitin, it comes up with a fairly high score, because you're working on a template. There are bits that are going to be similar. But make sure you put the actual information in your own words. Submitting through Moodle on the 15th of May, and we'll get it back. I'll have it back to you well and truly before the 29th of May, unless, of course, you've got an extension. So the topics, there's more topics in this one. There's optimism. It's looking on the bright side of life. Being positive but realistic. We can't be supermen, superwomen. Looking at the effects of learned helplessness. I think we've all had those people around us, and maybe we do it, where it's, I can't do it, will somebody else do it for me? And what triggers that, what makes that, and how we can help ourselves be more dynamic, taking control of our own lives. Education to personal empowerment is module 6. That's automatic negative thoughts and planting optimistic thoughts. Restrictive thinking, keeping stuff narrow and not looking outside the square for solutions, and sharpening our perceptions about what's happening in the world. Module 7 is positive emotions, broaden and build theory. Iceberg theories come back in there. Energy zones. Stress and resilience, impact of stress on our lives. The stress cycle, how to break out of that stress cycle. arousal and performance. High arousal can equal good performance or can reduce it, and some strategies to reduce your stress. Hang on. Assessment 3, this has come up again, so let's just speed our way through that. Assessment task 4. You've got 3 topics on this one. It's worth 30%. This is one I suggest you look at the various alternatives early. I do open it early because some of them take a little bit more time. It's not filling in a template, it's actually doing work on your own behalf. So it's a bit of research. The task options are an educational campaign using one of the strategies taught in this unit. So you look at one of the things, whether it's iceberg theory or resilience, something like that, and build a bit of an educational campaign. We suggest using something like PowerPoint, looking at a target audience, because we do have an Indigenous focus in our last couple of modules. It might be appropriate to build that in. So you're teaching a group about one of the strategies: resilience, happiness, the choose model. PowerPoint, we've had people being really creative with Filmmaker or some of those technologies. So that's one that appeals to the creative people amongst us. Social innovation using the human-centered design. We go into that later in the term. And there's just been some amazing social innovation ideas that have come out of last term where we ran it for the first time. Really interesting stuff. People have looked at what's needed in their community and come up with ideas. CQ University has a big focus on being socially innovative, and we have a seminar at the end of each year, and Trixie and I are going to use, obviously with permission of students we're putting it forward with, is actually put forward some of these ideas. You know, look at some way students in your class, how to keep them motivated. You know, some ideas how to support maybe single mums who are trying to study. So that's one. Another one is one I absolutely love, which is actioning random acts of kindness. I have links to the RAK site on the Moodle page. I don't know about you, but I've been the recipient of random acts of kindness. I go through drive-through coffee on my way to work each morning because I'm a coffee addict. And I had one morning where I got out of bed late, I just wasn't in the right headspace, and I went to get my drive-through coffee to find the person in front of me not only had paid for the coffee, but for a sticky bun as well for me, just because they felt like it. My whole day changed. We've had beautiful acts of kindness like giving flowers to strangers. Somebody last term bought a bunch of roses and was in a shopping centre, and there was obviously a whole lot of elderly women there, and he just gave roses out to each of them. You do the act, you then talk about how it makes you feel and the impact. So it's a particularly beautiful one, that one. So they're all really good, solid ideas, solid assessments that you can look at and really get your teeth into. But as I suggest looking at them early so you can get some planning around them. That's due on the 5th of June, and I'll definitely have everything back to you by the 19th. So pretty much the conclusion. Just after Alice arrives in Wonderland, she meets the Cheshire Cat. Alice asks the cat, "Would you please tell me which way I ought to walk from here?" The Cheshire Cat responds, "Well, that depends a good deal on where you want to get to." And I think that's part of our learning journey. Whether this is an area you want to keep doing, what will you get from positive learning? And that is really up to you. You can just go through the concepts and just take them at face value, or you can take them on board and go, yes, this is something I need to put into my life. This is something I need for me to move forward and get a career. Because all of you doing this are doing steps, which means you have a career in mind. You have an area in which you want to work in the future, and you want to build up your skills to get in. And like everything, you get out what you put into it. And it's not to expose you, as I said, to something to memorize and regurgitate. It's an individual experience. But I do want to really stress that some of it can touch us really personally. We might find it a bit difficult to walk through some of it. Any challenges, contact me. I'm easier to get by email because, as I said earlier, I'm actually not in my own office at the moment. I work in a pod with 10 other people, and obviously for private phone calls, I need to nick out into another room, so I've got to find one that's available. So if you email me, we can work out a time when we can connect. Just confidentiality, emotional safety for you, things like that. If you feel not comfortable putting personal stuff into your assessments, I understand that. Make up somebody. Do it in the third person as if it was somebody else. I am not going to know whether you're talking about yourself or someone else. But be assured that it's confidential. Everything comes and stays with me unless I ask your permission to show somebody else. Even some of those awesome assessment forwards that come in, I won't share them with Trixie unless I have your permission. And we have used some previous students. They're actually up on the site now with their permission because they've done an awesome job. And we've had their permission to actually utilise them. So that's pretty much the PowerPoint. Do you have any questions? Do you have anything that you feel? And then I can turn off this recording and figure it out from there.
Is the assessment for available now, or do we need to wait a couple of weeks?
I will set up another session for next week in that preferred time slot, and we'll see how we go. So I just want to make it so it's a regular time for everybody. And I'm just going to stop the recording now. Do you want to stop